All right, y'all. Welcome to another episode of LTF on a Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Jeff, am I too loud, Jeff? Okay. I've been told that before.
No, you're not.
Again, okay, just 5 minutes ago, Todd, is your sound off? Yeah, I got it off. Is your volume down? Yeah, I got it off. It's worse than Thrift, dude.
Rookie move.
You're
Rookie move.
First time on YouTube. No, we appreciate everybody tuning in. I know we got
hours. I didn't have anything to do with it. I'm just sitting there. I didn't touch anything.
Actually, let me tell y'all what we've replaced since those little episodes we've had. Jeff had 100% everything to do with it, but we did get a brand new. No, tonight is it's going to run flawlessly. It should be perfect tonight. I should never say that, should I?
You just jinxed this, bud.
So we replaced our iPad Pro that was, I don't know how many years old, with no updates in the past 3 years, which might have had something to do with it, with a brand new iPad Pro. Reloaded the app, updated the app, updated the iPad. Well, of course, the iPad was brand new, but we've been rocking and rolling ever since. We had a great last episode. If you didn't catch that episode, it's on our YouTube channel, of course. It is about the Cayuga BPT event and all the drama that surrounded that one. It was a great episode, had a lot of viewership and a lot of engagement, and we appreciate that. Don't forget, LTF is presented by Angler's Choice Marine. Angler's Choice Marine, which has 3 locations, Martinsville, Virginia, Spindale, North Carolina, and Lexington, North Carolina. So if you're in the market for a new boat, Ranger, Nitro, Triton, hey, even a bass buggy or a Sun Tracker pontoon. You know, I mean, I'm getting to the point now to where I thought I'd never buy a pontoon, but I'm almost to the point in my life
The
to where
girls are at age you want to ride around. It's time.
So my parents have one, so I can still kind of mooch off their pontoon. But one day I might actually own a pontoon. You know, I've been thinking about it. I've been thinking about it. But anyway, check them out. I know right now they've got a huge inventory. They've got some 23 stuff left over that they're really cutting back, doing some great deals on, and a lot of opportunity right now to get in a new boat. So go check them out at Angler's Choice Marine. And don't forget about ACM Tackle, too. I got to make a reminder. Special guest, by the way, Mr. Todd Goad, who has been on the show before. Todd is the owner of Pulsefish Lures, also NPFL Pro. We're going to talk about a couple of those, well, both of those. And you saw the title of the show tonight was something new because we do have a new bait that we're really excited about with Pulsefish Lures that we're going to chat about here in just a little bit. But ACM Tackle. So if you follow me on social media, I posted a video maybe a week or so ago, something like that, where we signed a bunch of ACM Tackle hats. We sent them to Angler's Choice, and for every order, $50 minimum order, that included at least one Pulsefish lure product, which is my signature finesse swim bait head, the spinning PJ. They've got the Pulse jigs in stock. As long as it included at least just a minimum of one in that $50 order, you also received a free signed ACM Tackle hat. I talked to Trent up at Angler's Choice in Martinsville, Virginia, kind of the home of ACM Tackle, yesterday, and he said there's a handful of those hats still left. So all the orders that have come in have not all qualified for a free signed hat. So check out acmtackle.com. There's a handful of those opportunities still left, and you can get your free signed hat along with some great gear, great tackle. And don't forget, they have, they carry AFCO, Costa. They've got all kinds of rods, reels, tackle, hard to find stuff. We've talked about it. If you have not been on the website yet, check them out at ACM Tackle, because I've said this before, I'll say it again, you'll find a lot of stuff on that website that you will not see just everywhere in the U.S. So really, really cool, tackle inventory there. All right, so we're going to make a little phone call here in just a second, Todd, and I'm going to turn it over to you. And obviously, we're going to talk about what's new, no pun intended. And we're going to have a call-in guest. And, I'm going to let them take over here in just a second. So you want to see if we can get him on the phone, Tyler? As I was leading into that, it was kind of a hint, go ahead and make the call, try to get him.
You never know.
Right. Just subtle. I try to drop subtle hints, you know what I'm saying? Try to drop subtle hints. So, on the backside of this, we have our trivia giveaway at the end of the night. And what they're getting ready to talk about, this new release coming down the pipe at Pulsefish Lures, is going to be part of our giveaway. And whoever wins the giveaway might, Todd, would you agree, is it fair to say that be the first ones in the U.S. to have these baits in their hands?
They will be the first ones.
All right.
First.
So Jeff just poked his head in and said he's going to be involved in the trivia question too, because he's turned on by this new little deal, because he thinks it might cross over and catch a big saltwater specimen also, which I'm sure it will. Actually, I know the smaller versions of these have done very well in saltwater. So we're going to get our guest on the phone. In the meantime, while we're waiting for him, he better pick up. Is all I can say. Oh, you're waiting? Okay. All right, you're waiting. In the meantime, I'm going to let Todd start talking about we don't really want to do that until he's on the phone, though.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
I'll go through some of the comments here because I see Byron Hendricks commented about I was playing golf down in Georgia on my birthday on Sunday and hit it pretty good, but I had 2 bad holes and I bogeyed 18 to shoot 80, but it was a good time. Went over the mountain.
Had a bad to medium. Do what, Jeff? Yeah,
that's what keeps you coming back. That's right.
Had a bad day and shot 80. Boy, if I shoot 80 on a bad day, I might change my profession.
And this last NPFL event, I see Landon Tucker's on there too. So Patrick Walter's dad, kind of after the first day, because I was in 5th after the first day, he'd made a comment to Trent Palmer, Mike Corbishley, and them. They were staying at Pat's house for the week, and he said, Todd's, because Mike and Trent both struggled, he said, Todd's probably kicking y'all's butt, old man fishing, dragging a worm around. So I ended up, for some reason, I ended up being called Paul or the old man after this event. But
Paul.
I, like I said on live when Luke and Fat Cat were covering me, it's kind of a badge of honor. But
you know what's funny about that is that's what Canterbury and Martin thought it'd be funny to start calling me that just because I go to bed early. And if you've ever watched it on YouTube, you've noticed that they try to call me Paw. But I think you have overtaken me simply because the age difference here. You know, seniority rules. So I'm going to let you keep the Paw name as opposed to me taking it. So anyway, let's see. So. Oh, by the way, if anybody's missing Thrift tonight, nobody said they really were, and you know, I'm not going to sit here and complain too much. I got Todd in the studio. No, I'm just kidding. We always miss Thrift when he's not here, but he's up at St. Clair for the BPT event. He's actually he did slide into the cut, so he was borderline there at the end, and then he slid in, jumped up to like 18th place right there in the last 30, 45 minutes maybe, and ended up making the cut. So he's fishing in the what do they call that round after the preliminary round?
Knockout round, maybe?
Knockout round. Is it knockout round or is that the first round?
It's the knockout round.
Okay,
I think
so
Group A and B, 20 from each one fishes the knockout round.
That's right. Yep. Yeah, that's right, Jeremy. Thrift's not here. We can talk hunting. The problem is it's June, so it's really not a good time of year to be talking hunting. And we have Todd as a guest, so we got a lot of really cool things to talk about. So
don't worry, I heard all I could hear about deer cameras today and stuff.
Well, that's so funny you said that. Look at the next statement on there from Ryan. So hey, Matt, you got your trail. It just so happens, Ryan, that Saturday and Sunday this past weekend, I was in the woods all day Saturday, most of the day Sunday, doing some deer prep. I am one that likes to get in the woods and get it done early, just because I like to get my stink out of there. I like to get everything set. I like to watch them grow through July and August. Anyway, it's a lot of fun for my best friend Brian and I. Not Bryan Thrift, Brian Schuford. That sounded bad, like my best friend Brian and I, but it's not Thrift. No, Thrift's a good buddy, obviously. But my deer hunting buddy, longtime deer hunting buddy, Brian and I, we were in the woods all weekend. We've got 8 or 9 cell cams set out running, and I'd be lying if I said I won't be tempted to be following those trail cams while I'm up in Michigan in July, and definitely in August, because by the end of August we're going to kind of have a pretty good inventory on what we got as far as bucks this year to hunt. So I do have a bunch of cams out to answer your question. So have we got him on the phone yet? I mean, really? He put us on a delay? Okay. All right. Well, unfortunately, he was unable to make the show. He tried to make the show, had some things come up, but we're going to have him call in. So when he calls in, we'll jump right over to that topic. Back to talking about Todd, something else we're going to touch on here in a little bit is the NPFL AOY race this year, who the winner actually gets entry fees paid for 2024 along with...
Yeah, it's $20,000 in cash plus
your entry fees. Paid. So it's 60 grand value roughly.
Yeah.
Todd is very much in the running for that. With how many events are left?
3
events are left.
Yep.
You're third?
Second, sorry.
I don't know why I saw third. I guess 3 events, third place. Second in the AOY, and 3 events left. You've got the next one's smallmouth deal. You got
Saginaw.
Sturgeon. I want to say Sturgeon Bay.
We
Well, I
go
don't want to say
Saginaw.
Sturgeon Bay. Saginaw Bay. You've got Lanier, which you got.
Yep, we got
a little history on
Oklahoma
Lanier.
in September, and then,
Okay.
and then we finish at Lanier the last October.
Here's what's funny about Eufaula, Oklahoma. So Eufaula, Oklahoma has not been really on the national tournament scene for years, right? And 3 divisions are
Everybody's
fishing it
going
this
there.
year.
Everybody's going there.
The FLW Tour, well, it's not called that anymore. What are they called now? The Invitationals.
Invitationals were there.
Major League Fishing Invitationals were there. And then you had the Bassmaster Open was there that Joey Nania won. Congrats to Joey, by the way. Great guy, and it was very deserving of the win. And then y'all were going there. So it is crazy how all the tournaments come crashing in there this year. And it's an interesting fishery. I've been watching a little bit because, bass may eventually be there, with the elites in the next few years. I mean, the Opens were there this year. So
For sure.
huge lake. So that was what was interesting to me, just the sheer size of it. I had no idea Eufaula, Oklahoma was that big.
Huge. And I think, and I don't know if Neil Paul's watching tonight or not, but there's been so many people that talk to Neil, and he gives his advice on how he's kind of turned Lake Hartwell into the mecca of what it is. And he's done such a good job with these places, talking about the economic impact that when a tournament comes to town, what that does to the city and the surrounding areas. Tons of money. And the places that get it, like a Eufaula, Oklahoma, they see the economic impact, and he's done a phenomenal job kind of spreading that word across the country to people that actually want to listen and hear him tell the story about it.
Yeah. Well, I think we've got our guest. I think we had our guest, and then he just took off walking in the other room. Okay, he's walking back now. So we have our guest, and if nobody has figured it out quite yet, it is none other than Mr. Bryan New. I mean, the kids, Tyler's just on the struggle bus over here tonight. I tell you, man, he's just on the struggle bus. All right. So,
Do we have New on the phone?
New, you there?
What's up, boys?
He is there. All right. The volume on the speaker sounds a little off, but
Not in person, but he is here.
yeah, not in person, but you're here. We'll take you any way we can get you, buddy.
Ryan Sauer said, "If you ain't first, you're new." That's hilarious.
Yeah, very true. Very true.
That's
So,
awesome.
all right. So, New, we have not crashed right into the new bait tonight because we wanted to give you and Todd an opportunity to actually really unveil it, so to speak. And by the way, the trivia giveaway tonight is going to be 4 of these brand new in the package coming to the winner, so that'll be pretty cool. But yeah, y'all take off and talk about kind of how it came about and how you're going to use it and the setups and things like that.
Yeah, so we got a new bait, pulse fish coming. It's the Boss Man. And me and Todd, we had been talking for a while, trying to come up with something new and a little bit different. And we were playing with a lot of different things. And Boss Man, and what it is, it's if you look at it, it looks like a traditional pulse jig, a 1-ounce traditional pulse jig. But we put a bigger hook, we put a thicker bill.
Hold on 1 second, New.
And-
Hold on 1 second. Can everybody hear New okay? Y'all let us know because we're running him through a speaker under a mic, and if you can't, I'm going to switch it out to just a phone. I can hear myself in the other room that Jeff's listening to. So, yeah, they said they can't hear him good. So I'm going to switch this out right here.
Somebody said, "Yeah."
Hey, that sounds better to me.
Yeah. Hold on 1 second. Here, Tyler, I'm going to have you slide that under the mic there. And that way he'll probably come in a little bit better.
Hear me now.
Can you hear us, New?
Yes.
Okay, good.
It definitely sounds better.
Okay, cool.
That's a
Yeah.
lot better. Yeah.
Great as I would like.
It
but
should sound a little bit better now. Hopefully that helped y'all. We pulled it. We had it Bluetooth through a speaker on the mic, so I think that better. Yeah, Ryan said that's much better. All right, New. Sorry to interrupt, but I want to make sure everybody could hear you. So go ahead and continue.
Yeah, well, hey, you hang around me long enough, I'll teach you how to make chicken salad out of chicken crap. So we'll make the best out of it. But yeah, so me and Todd, we had been talking a while, trying to come up with something a little bit new, not just another of the same. We played around with a lot of different things, not even in the same category as the Boss Man, and we come up with the Boss Man. And what it is, just looking at it, it looks like another pulse jig, and which it is, but it's a 1 ounce. It's got a big hook, but the key to it is the thick bill, the bigger thick bill. And what that does, it makes it thump harder, and it also makes it good for fishing brush. That thicker bill doesn't fold back as easy, and it really serves as a really good weed guard. I'm not saying you'll never get hung up, but you can't take any jig and say you're never going to get hung up either. But yeah, man, it's been playing with it and dialing it in for a while. It's just like anything else, it never comes out just great the first try, but it took us a few, and we got it, and it's definitely a really good bait. For sure. I really this year, the way the schedule's lined up, it's been around spawn tournaments for the most part, or a river like the Sabine, where you're definitely not going to throw something that you catch big ones on.
I caught a lot of bass at the Sabine, much smaller than the bait that Todd just held up.
What's that?
I caught a lot of bass at the Sabine, smaller than the bait that Todd just held up that was on the back of it.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. Yeah, I love, like this, you could put it, it's like a regular pulse jig. You put a lot of different trailers on it. But, one of my favorite is a Magnum Zoom Super Fluke. But right here, this is a little off-the-wall one for you. A Zoom Speed Z-Crawl.
Oh, the small one?
The regular Zoom Speed Crawl. I keep saying Speed Crawl. Got a lot going on. Got a squirrel looking at me right now. He's messing with my mind.
Does it look like he's going to kill you or something?
I put it sideways where the legs are up and down instead of side to side, and it makes a good brim profile.
Okay.
It makes a good shad profile as well, but like when I'm doing that, I'm typically going for that brim profile.
Got you.
Yeah.
So a couple of the advantages I see is obviously the thicker bill, and it's got bigger hook. It's an 8-aught, correct?
It's an 8-aught hook, yeah.
8-aught Gamakatsu hook. So
yeah.
That's legit, right? Like this is a big fish bait. Like it can handle, and it's going to really shine obviously on Tennessee River lakes, on ledges, things like that. But anywhere you get on a deep bite where they're feeding on big gizzards or even New just gave you a great tip on putting a smaller creature bait on there, which is something I've never really even considered, fishing a 1 ounce scrounger type bait. But that's something to think about. I think some of us get distracted when we see a big head on a bait like a 1 ounce or an ounce and a quarter or even a 3/4 ounce, and it's got a bill on it and a big hook and yada yada yada. But it's it's no different. Like I've taken a 1 ounce head and put a 2-inch bait on it before. It's sometimes in our mind, whether it looks right to us, sometimes that's just what it takes in order to get a bite. But yeah, y'all, Todd, you got anything to add to that?
Well, I just want to say too that this has really taken over a year to kind of come to fruition, and like New said, the thickness of the bill, we tested probably 6 or 7 different thicknesses, and it's the durometer of the bait, which is that thickness, and we found the one that actually gives it the most action and will still bend over with a fish bite, and it's real aggressive. We kind of got the idea. I've got a really good friend out of Missouri in Lake of the Ozarks, and the fish get offshore in the summertime, and he was like, I want a big pulse jig with a big hook in it, because we do have a 1-aught or a 1 ounce that has a 5-aught, 6-aught hook in it, but you can't put a big bait on it. So, I talked to New about it, and we started tinkering, and if you can see the cup in that bill too. It really has a really good hunting action, and this one's got a jerky J on it, but if you'll notice the head that Matt's holding up, we actually have a wire coming out of the head if you want to turn it around and let them see it. You guys can customize the keeper too. You just take you a pair of needle nose and either bend that wire up or down based on whatever keeper that you want to, whatever trailer you want to put on it, you can customize that keeper. So I've got a good friend that's throwing this down at Chickamauga. I sent him a few, and his exact words to me were, this is the best running 1 ounce bait that he's ever thrown in that scrounger type category. And he's been catching them down there, and I'm probably going to slide down there Thursday and see if I can wind some up with him too. But we're really excited about this bait. I know it's going to catch fish out there offshore deep, but it's really, it's a multi-species bait. This thing will catch stripers. It'll catch pretty much anything that swims. I know when Smitty sees this he's probably going to want to send some up that way for some of the fishing he does out there during the summer. But
oh yeah,
we're excited.
Yeah, I mean that's something else. So a few of the things that, like, when we really got to playing with it and really got to diving in and testing it, and obviously different situations is, kind of like right now we're kind of talking to multi-species, so I'll kind of go into that a little bit. Like me, I striper fish. I live at Lake Murray, and I striper fish during the off season, during the fall and the winter. I mean, like Alabama rig is pretty much what I've always thrown, and obviously I still do as well. But I just got to playing with it, and man, oh my God, it's so good. And one thing that's really good about it is most of the time, or for this situation, most of the times you're fishing for schooling fish, but they're schooling 10 to 15 feet below the surface. And they're, of course they do school on the surface as well. And you can make a really, really long cast, but you can also get it down there to them when they're 10, 15, 20 foot deep. And just get them to them quick, because stripers, they never, ever, ever stop. They're always swimming. And if you see them schooling, if you see them on your 360 or your live scope, whatever it is, if you see them right here at 0 degrees, they're already on their way over to the left or to the right or away from you. They're not, when you see them right there, they're not going to be there very long. So you've got to get to them very quick. And that's, something I learned quick. Like I had to play with whenever the Alabama rig was my key deal for those stripers, was playing with the heads, getting the head weights right so you can get to them quick enough, but it's not too heavy that it goes past them. And, that 1 ounce, it's dead on for that. But the other thing, which obviously, we're all bass fishermen, we all love that. And, that's our main deal. I love brush pile fishing. I love isolated targets. So a brush pile, a stump, a rock pile. And, there's only so many baits that you can use and fish that effectively without getting hung up or whatever it may be. And the thickness of that bill, the way it comes through brush is amazing. Deep grass, like isolated deep grass clumps, it's really good for that too. And kind of bounce back a little bit when we were at my first year on the Elites, 21, when we were at Pickwick, I had one small isolated clump of eelgrass. And the first 2 days of that tournament, actually, no, it was the second day. I found it the second day of that tournament, and I caught them every single cast on a chatterbait. The second day I start on it, I made 2 casts, I caught 2 bass, and then like the next 5 or 6 casts, I'd have a bite and they wouldn't eat it. I sat it down, I picked up a regular 3/8 ounce pulse jig and threw over there and started catching them every cast again. So when that happened, my wheels started spinning, and I really got to thinking, a pulse jig is really the same thing as a chatterbait, but way more finesse. So the Boss Man is the same thing as a chatterbait, but a little bit more finesse. And with that thicker bill, it's able to come through brush better. So there's so many different situations where like it's really going to shine. It really has a lot of advantages. You know, that big 8/0 Gamakatsu hook, it's strong. You're able to put it on 20-pound line, a big heavy flipping stick, bombing a mile. You know, put it on that heavy line. You lay the steel to them when they bite it, and you don't worry about that hook bending out. And, you know, yeah, I'm really excited about it. I'm going to, you know, it's probably not going to work for me the rest of this tournament season since all we're doing is fishing for smallmouth and little bitty baits. But, man, when the all-season hits and I start just fun fishing around Murray and just the Carolina lakes, and then striper season hits, I'm really going to be putting it to work.
Yeah, and real quick, let's address. You talked about what's interesting to me, suspended fish, new, and getting on the stripers and things like that. You know, having a bait that gets down there quick. But the other thing is the bill length on these baits makes a big difference also on how quickly they rise in the water column. And this bill length to me strikes me as one that would, you know, stay there in the strike zone a little bit longer. And we've had questions about a slow or medium, fast retrieve, things like that. Y'all give real quick your setup for fishing this bait, line size, gear ratio reel, and your cadence with a bait like this, because we're getting a lot of questions about that.
Yes. So for me, I throw it on a 7-to-1 gear ratio reel. 7.5 foot, you know, 7.6, 7, something in that range. Medium heavy, you know, you want some power, but you also want a little bit of tip so it loads up and you can just cast it right. You don't want just a straight up flipping stick. And 20-pound sunline, you know, that's my deal. You know, obviously I play with different trailers, whether it's the Magnum Fluke, Jerky J, Z Crawl, and the bait itself or the trailer itself just really depends on the situation and watercolor as well. But that's my setup there. The deal with that 20-pound line and a 7-to-1 reel, I know the sink rate and I can know, you know, what speed I need to reel it at and keep it in that, like, it's just something you kind of have to learn on your own. I can't tell you exactly how fast you need to reel it. But, you know, now with live scope, you know, I'll go ahead and say this. I'm a live scope hater, but I have it because it's a tool that I have to have for my job. But I hate it for tournament fishing. But it's an awesome tool, and it's really good, and it's taught me a lot. But in that situation of knowing how to keep the bait in a certain water column or keep it from rising or keep it from falling, I mean, it's unbelievable for that. And, you know, that's kind of taught me even more about the speed. But, you know, with 20-pound, you know, everybody's 20-pound a little bit different. Sink rate definitely depends on diameter, not what somebody labels their line as. Pound-wise, it's definitely diameter. But, you know, with Sunline's 20-pound SC Sniper, it's perfect. I mean, it's something you got to play with and dial in yourself. But, you know, as far as rod, reel, line, that's my setup.
Yeah, and trailers have a lot to do with the way, because when you're dealing with a 1-ounce bait, you know, line diameters in the same pound test may not make as much a difference as they do when you're dealing with a 1/4 ounce with a 3.5-inch Kitech or something on the back, you know. So the setup for me is very similar for throwing 1 ounce, you know, a 1-ounce pulse jig. I'm a 7.5 foot, medium heavy. Again, not flipping sticks, not broomsticks, things like that. Yeah. I'm kind of with Todd. Todd discussed it earlier that he likes a slower gear ratio reel. But when I fish these baits in certain scenarios, I've typically fished them closer to the bottom, and I've tried to keep them closer to the bottom. Now, if you're fishing suspended stripers and things like that, moving really fast, you may want a higher gear ratio reel, which makes sense. The 6-to-1 is better for me just because it forces me to keep it, you know, slow, you know, because I'm, you know, it's easy for me to screw up a retrieve. I mean, if I have a super high gear ratio reel.
I'm kind of a light line guy, and I actually will throw this on 15 a lot, 15 to 17, and based on, you know, when you see them out there on forward facing sonar, I was out on Douglas Saturday afternoon, and the fish were on the bottom, and that 6.4 reel, that gear ratio, helped me keep it on the bottom.
Keep it down there.
And I could see it down there, and I caught a few doing it that way. But Yeah, I like a medium, like a 7.3, 7.4, kind of a 7.5 foot medium heavy rod. And another thing about this bait too is you've got to train yourself, because a lot of times the rod will just load up and you won't get that big, almost you won't get a jig bite or like a crankbait bite.
The vibration stops.
The vibration stops, and you just lean back into it, and you'll catch a lot of fish just leaning into it like that. So. And that's with every pulse jig, but I've noticed it with this one too, is when you get a bite, you almost just kind of reel up the slat and just kind of just lean with it. And
almost like one eating a drop shot.
one like eating a drop shot.
A little different, but
this thing's in
But a lot
four.
more fun.
Before we go, it's in 4 colors too. It's in green albino, our unpainted clear coated head we call smoky, albino, and pearl.
yeah, you can see them all right here.
yep.
And these are actually the 4 we're going to give away, y'all, at the end of
Yeah.
the show.
Yeah.
So the trivia giveaway tonight, again, somebody's going to get 4 of these brand new Boss Mans. Hey, New, I got to ask you something.
All right.
So you remember when you and I met? It's probably been at least 15 years ago. I don't know. We've known each other at least 15 years, wouldn't you say?
It
Is
was
that fair to say?
2008, whatever that was.
2008?
Yeah, 15
That's 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was the year I graduated high school.
Yeah, and God, you were a little turd then. I'm just
is.
kidding. I'm just kidding,
Still
buddy.
is.
But you remember when you and I started fishing together? We fished a few team tournaments together, and we fished a few at Wiley, and you practiced with me a little bit here and there with some FLW stuff, maybe even some BFLs. I can't remember, but I would like ask you something like, "Hey, man, will you hand me that?" And you'd always say, "Yes, boss man," or "Yes, boss." Yes, boss man.
Yes, boss.
Is that where this name
yeah.
came from by chance, or did it come from somewhere else?
I don't remember, but I don't remember, but that's a good point. No, it's definitely not named after me.
Well, that's our story, and we're sticking to it.
So the whole, just a little funny story on the boss man thing. That come from at work where I worked back then. We had this guy that worked with us. Well, 2 of the guys that worked with us. One of the guys always liked to boss this other guy around. It's like, go over there and dig that hole or clean that trench out, this and that, because he didn't want to do it. And the other guy, he was, yes, boss, just like a smart ass. Yes, boss. That's where it comes from.
Well, I
So
can tell.
just-
When you were saying it to me, I felt there was a little bit of sarcasm in your voice when you would say that to me. So anyway, a couple people already commented that did Matt actually inspire this bait? But no, I cannot take any credit for. Well, maybe I inspired the name a little bit, but I didn't have any credit. I can't take any credit on the rest of it. So.
Well, with everything
Yes.
everything that's in it, the components, the bait itself, the big hook, the thicker bill, it's just a boss, So
Yeah,
that's
it's a boss.
It's and Brian, can't thank you enough for all the R&D you did helping develop this thing, and it's going to be another fish catcher in the lineup for sure.
Yep. Oh,
Absolutely, for sure. It was fun. It was a fun project, and I'm looking forward to more in the future. That's everybody has their thing. We all fish for a living, but we have our thing. Like Matt, he likes to go play with balls, play ball and pickleball, whatever it is.
I don't know what you just said, but it didn't sound good.
Fishing tackle. And, I've always, since I've got little baits that I've carved out. They look terrible, but I've got baits that I carved when I was a kid. I've got a spook that I made. I took a broom handle and cut it off and screwed eyelets in it, and oh my God, it walks so terrible. It pretty much don't walk.
Hey, do you still have some of those
Since I was
baits?
a kid, I've tinkered. So, I love doing it. I love going through the process. All right, it didn't work. This is what was wrong with it. And, and kind of analyze, all right, what do I think we need to do? What's the next step to see if it's right? And then you get a little closer, and then you go back, and it's, oh, well, this is what it needs to be. And then you eventually, you hit it, you get it right. And, but with the boss man and really the pulse jig in itself, everybody, and myself included, have always been so hung on bait fish profile or shad, gizzard shad profile trailers. Man, I've been playing with that Z crawl the last few years, and there's definitely other baits. that you can use, but the Z-Claw is the one that really stands out to me. You know, I love that. That's my number one chatterbait trailer. I just love the profile of it. It's tall enough, and the legs it just looks perfect for a little brim, a little bluegill profile. And you know, I've never seen anybody else put that on a Pulse jig or anything like it. And with that, you know, like I said, my number one, like where I'm always excited to throw the ball span is isolated targets and brush piles. And sometimes I eat shafts and sometimes I eat brim. And that's where, for bass fishing, that's where it shines the most for me. Just because, like, ledge fishing is going to be awesome, but I just don't run into that situation as often as I do isolated targets. And it just comes through brush so good.
Yep.
Yeah, it's going to be a player for sure. And we got some questions. We'll jump on those here in just a minute, New, but I can let you go. I appreciate you joining us. The questions, since they don't revolve around the boss man, I know you took some extra time out of your day and you've got some other things going on, but we do appreciate you giving us at least 15, 20 minutes here to talk about the new bait. And man, we're excited about it. I'll have plenty in my box. I know you'll have a few in case I run out. I hope. You better anyway. It's funny because, you know, every time I get to a tournament and I'm like, hey, New, you got any extra so-and-so? And he'll look at it, and he's just like Thrift. He'll look in his box and he'll say, he'll say, man, I only got like 27, and I might actually, I'm probably going to need them all. Like I might need, I got to give New a little credit. He's actually hooked me up before when I needed something. But Thrift, on the other hand, he's a tough one to crack now.
Hey, you got to take care of your buddies.
That's
you got to
right.
take care of your friends.
That's
You
right.
never know when you're gonna need
what goes
something,
around comes around, right?
Yeah, so here's the deal. Me and Brittany are buying a house. We close Thursday, which is 2 days from now, I think. So everybody, go stock up on the Boss Man, because we got some big bills coming.
They're on the website. They're live now. If you want to go on the website, pulsefishlures.com.
So when did they go live, by the way?
Not to mention we got a baby
2 minutes
due
to
in a
7.
month.
Did you hear that, New? I don't know if you heard Todd, but the boss man,
yeah.
the boss man just went live about 2 minutes before this show started tonight.
Oh, that is very good.
So
seriously,
pulsefishlures.com,
all
you
jokes
can get
aside,
the
we
boss
always
man now.
joke and like to have a good time. I really wish I could be there and slap you around tonight, but I had some other things going on. Definitely looking forward to, you'll have to, if you ever invite me again, I'm sure you probably will. You like having cool people on there every now and again. So I wish I could have been there, but all joking to the side, that's what I was getting at. No, it truly is. It's a good bait. I mean, all the Pulse Fish products are awesome, and just being a part of this product has been it's been a fun journey, and I'm so excited that it's actually it's finally on the market, and everyone else is going to get a chance to put it in their toolbox, and it's going to be a good tool. It's a new face on an old product, and it's just a little tweak to an old tool, and it's got a different job.
Yeah, sometimes that's all it takes. But New, again, man, we appreciate you joining us, and tell everybody down there in South Carolina we said hey.
Absolutely, man. Y'all have fun, and try not to give the trivia question answer away tonight.
Don't worry. We'll see you, buddy.
See you, Bo.
All right, take care. See you.
All right, so Mr. Bryan New, we appreciate him jumping in tonight. And again, I know we've got some other questions. I did see Jody Wright made a comment earlier that Lake Murray, the Bassmaster magazine. I haven't even got a chance to read that issue yet, Jody, but it's sitting on the counter at home in the kitchen. I'm going to read it later, and it's the top 100. You know how they always do the top 100 lakes? Mm-hmm. And it said Lake Murray made the top 5. Well, as far as a largemouth fishery, there's no reason why it shouldn't be in the top 5. The way that lake is fishing, it's fishing out of its mind right now. Phenomenal. It was unbelievable this year. If anybody watched the Elite Series down there, BPT was down there before us. It was an absolute smash fest. I mean, when it takes, half the field catches 34, 35 pounds. I think it was almost 35. Mm-hmm. It was almost 35 pounds for 2 days to make the top 50 cut in the Elite Series down there. Sure, we were down there at a great time, but from January all the way through, May, that thing was kicking them out. Now, obviously, it slowed down a little bit. Getting the dog days of summer, we're finally getting some really hot weather actually around here. It's supposed to be in the 90s like every day next week. But all that's been delayed, and it's kept the water temp surprisingly in mid to upper 70s in a lot of areas in the southeast. Just now, Todd and I were actually doing a little filming today on Moss Lake here locally. You've heard us talk about Moss all the time, and the water temp, it looked like, it barely broke 80. It was in the 80 to 81 range, and when it gets in the 80s, that's when things really truly get into their summertime pattern deals. Yeah. And looks like we're finally going to get there in the coming weeks. So
yeah, it's been crazy at home on Douglas and Cherokee. I mean, it's been in the 70s for the last 2 weeks at home, air temperature, and the lake, the Douglas, I was out there Saturday and it was just 76 degrees. And I mean, there's still fish 10 foot deep. And I mean, there's fish 25 out there too, but it's crazy. I mean, there's, and like you said, it's going to start getting hotter and the fish will get out there and they're more their summertime patterns and haunts. But yeah, it's been a different spring and early summer for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I did have a question earlier from Academic Mailbox, talking about what are bass anglers, and this is a good question that kind of revolves around the bait that we're launching tonight in the Boss Man with a 1 ounce, a 1 ounce pulse jig. What are bass anglers' options when you're talking about a 1 ounce weight bracket? And they ask, other than large like out of line spinner baits, things like that, which is not necessarily a deep bottom style bait, but football jigs, 1 ounce, you can absolutely have 1 ounce football jigs. You can have 1 ounce swim bait heads. A lot of people use a Carolina rig when you're dealing with an ounce, and punching rigs, you're using an ounce. Well, that's a little bit different because that's just a weight, but still 1 ounce weight bracket that still falls in that category. What else? What am I missing, Todd? Anything else?
I think you covered it.
I've never thrown a 1 ounce like shaky head. Have you?
No, I haven't.
Or a 1 ounce drop shot weight.
No.
About a half ounce is about as big as I've ever been on a drop shot. But football jig, swim bait head, scrounger type head. That pretty much covers it. 1 ounce Carolina rig, things like that. But
would you consider a big spoon, like a 1 ounce spoon?
Yeah, some of them things. The big ones weigh 2 ounces.
Yeah.
So. That's the 1 ounce weight bracket. Technically, and it, when you get in that 1 ounce plus weight bracket, it does take a little bit more. It just takes a different setup, to fish a lot of that stuff. So
there's some big 1 ounce ledge buster type spinner baits out there on the market too.
Very true. Very true. All right, Keith Wood was saying High Rock was still in the mid 70s last weekend in the BFL, and that is crazy for almost July there. I've seen. I swear, July 1st in the past, I've seen High Rock temps at 90 degrees, around the 90 degree mark. And what's funny, and this is just a quick tip for summertime fishing. You see a lot of people get this preconceived notion that when that water hits 90 and this, that, and the other, they need to fly out deep. What is very often misunderstood is when that water hits 90, a lot of the oxygen depletion happens in the deeper water column. And what you see, and you'll see a turnover and things like that later in the summer, early fall, but what you'll see is you'll see a lot of those fish, especially like High Rock, which is the reason it reminded me of this. But you'll see it all over. You'll see it at Norman, you'll see it at Wiley, you'll see it at Moss. You'll see a handful of really big fish get as shallow as they'll get all year long. And I'm talking about a foot of water with their backs almost out of the water. And that happens when that water gets super, super, super hot in the summertime. So keep that in the back of your mind. Just a little quick summertime fishing tip. Chuck's saying he's got 1.5 ounce spinner baits. Yep, a lot of big swim baits with 1 ounce beast hooks and things like that in them too. Jeremy, you're correct. Glide baits, things like that, they fall into the 1 ounce plus category. But then you're talking about you're opening up a whole new can of worms. Yeah. You're talking about some of these glide baits are weighing 2.5, 3.5 ounces, like some of these 10 and 12 inch glides. But Let's slide back in. We got about 15 minutes. Let's slide back in and talk about, we talked about Todd's position in the AOY and the MPFL, having a great season, obviously. Came off a phenomenal finish at the last event, second place at Santee Cooper, only behind Mr. Santee Cooper himself, Patrick Walters. And that was I know he had a little bit of a margin, but what was your total for 3 days? It was just under 60, wasn't it?
62 something.
Oh, it was over 60. Okay,
Yeah.
62. There's only
Yeah.
2 anglers to break 60, though, just
Yeah.
you and Patrick.
Yeah,
Nobody else broke 60 pounds.
No, and I beat third place by like almost, I think it's about 8 pounds. So it really came down to Patrick and I. And
See, and what was Patrick's total?
65 and a half, 66.
Okay.
So,
But solid tournament. And that time of year, almost all years, Santee's always like a feast or famine type lake. And you see that just what you just said. Like, guys can weigh in a 27-pound bag and literally catch one bass the next day.
Yeah.
Not necessarily when they're laid on the bed everywhere, but like the time y'all were there, the time we were there, when like the spawn's pretty much done,
Yeah.
things are in transition, things are happening. Fish can be, of course, when you were there, let's see, that was, is that late May?
yeah, about the 20th of May.
Yeah, late May.
somewhere
So,
late May.
you know, in Santee terms, the fish were probably kind of established in their summertime deal.
But the weather was funky there too. I mean, it never got out of the 70s the whole week we
What
were
was
there.
the water temp there when y'all were there?
Mid 70s.
Okay, so it was mid 70s.
Yeah.
So it still
And
hadn't gotten hot
It was
down there.
crazy, and I mean, it was shaping up to be a tough event to get a lot of bites. But I had my weight the first morning. I had 19 pounds by like 11 o'clock, and I actually kind of let off the gas, thinking I needed to kind of manage my fish for 3 days because I thought I was in the top 5 with that weight. So I ended up kind of looking around and practicing a little bit. And I actually found 2 magic docks. I ended up catching a 5-pounder off of a dock the second day. But that first day, it came down to the difference that Patrick beat me by the first day was pretty close to what he beat me by for the tournament, within a pound or so. But it was, and there was wind there. I mean, the wind was going to gas like Saturday. It was going to gust to like 50. So there was kind of talk at the dock the second morning. Patrick sponsored by Clarendon County, and the guy that runs that was down there on the dock, and they were saying, hey, this might just be a 2-day event because the wind didn't look really good on Sunday either. So I kind of burnt it down the second day, I thought.
Yeah, why wouldn't you?
And had 22 the second day, and Patrick caught him good too. But we ended up fishing Sunday, and my area was really just, I couldn't get over how good that area was, my main stretch. I mean, I caught 2 7s off of it and 2 5s in this one stretch, and it was just a magic place. I said it on a social media post after the tournament, probably one of the best weeks of decision making I ever made, from looking at the wind and practicing, because I normally and it'd been 7 or 8 years since I'd been to Santee, but I always fished over there in the Brickyard and Rocks Pond and in that area, and I didn't even go over there and practice because looking at the wind, it looked like it was going to blow it out, and it did. And I stayed on the Tawkaw side of the lake, and it ended up working out for me. So just a really good week of making good decisions. And it was funny, after it was all over with, Justin Kimmel texted me, and he said, you won the Patrick Walters Invitational. But
he had a bone to pick too. He was
mad at him after your event.
Yeah, he was at the elite tournament. He didn't have a good event, and he was out to prove something in that one. And kudos to Patrick and you both for breaking the 60-pound mark that time of year. And Todd gave a couple really, really good tips. When you were going through your kind of your process there, and one was talking about practicing and predicting weather patterns for multiple day events. And that doesn't apply everywhere. And your High Rocks and your Normans and things, it's not quite as big of a factor because those lakes just don't get super rough. Somebody might yell at me and say, well, Norman gets rough. Well, not compared to Santee Cooper or Lake Erie or Ontario or somewhere, or Okeechobee for that matter. So keeping that in consideration is a really good tip when you're practicing for multiple day events, because if it wasn't for Todd's planning during practice, who knows what would have happened. I mean, you could have zeroed literally, because when your water at Santee gets blown out and it blows 30 or 40 or 20 and it pounds the same area for 2 or 3 days in a row, then you might as well just hang it up, So, and it becomes unfishable, The other thing that he kind of hinted at is talking about fish management. And, you were a little bit misdirected, unfortunately, with saying we thought it was going to be 2 days and it was 3 days and things like that. And I think the tournament organization itself should have made that very, very clear at a very, very early stage. You know, this is our protocol, and this is the way it goes down, period. That way, you wouldn't have had a question saying, should I burn it down? Should I not? You know, do I need to manage it better? It obviously worked out really, really well for you.
Yeah.
But that is something that us as multiple day tournament anglers, we always have to consider. So when there's an outside uncontrollable variable, like an organization saying, well, we might just fish 2 days, or we might fish 3 days, or we may not, you know, then then you're kind of like, man, I don't know what to do. You know, should I catch everything that's there and just burn it down, then go look for new areas, or how do I approach this? But fish management in a multiple day event is super, super critical. And it's the best anglers in the world have mastered that art. And we have done episodes on LTF before in the past where we've talked about fish management. And, you know, I think that the biggest key is really, in order to maximize your fish management skills, let's just put it in that context, you have to really understand what you found. Meaning, do you always understand what you found in practice? Not necessarily, but when you start catching a few fish in the tournament, that's when you have to really understand what you found and what the potential is. What kind of size do you need to compete? What kind of size do you potentially need to win? And sometimes, I mean, especially in the elites, dude, I don't know, like, if you think you got enough, you better catch a little bit more. You know, that's just the way it is every tournament. If you look at, it's like Murray, Champlain, you know, you don't see a gap in the field. You see a gap in the field between 1st and 70th. But between 1st and 5th, you might see a little bit of gap, and then 5th to 50th, it'll be like that, you know, and that's the thing. Like, do you know, knowing when to stay, knowing when to go, so after the day one weigh-in, that's what really sets the pace for the tournament, for every tournament for that matter, that's multiple days. And then you have to, you know, kind of sit back and you got to be pretty, you know, you got to be pretty spot on with your calculations and your fish management skills to come out on top in a multiple day event, and to finish just in the top 5, much less winning an event. So
they did a good job after. I mean, it wasn't 30 minutes after weigh-in was over on Saturday, canceling day 3 on Saturday, but they did say we're fishing on Sunday. They went ahead and made that decision, so that was good that they did that. So you didn't know though until after the weigh-in. Correct.
Yeah. So you were fishing the day, not knowing if they're going to add a day, basically. Yeah. Okay, got you.
One other thing I was going to say about Santee, and I noticed it, and you might have noticed it when you were there too, but it fished a lot like Florida. And as many times as I've been to Florida over the last few years, I learn a little more every time I go, and I really enjoy fishing down there. But I found that if I got a bite in an area, in a spot, you better slow down and fish around that area. And Florida's notorious for that. But Santee, I really noticed that, especially.
They live in groups.
Yeah, and in practice, I mean, I shook off several, you know, cut your hook off. And that's another thing. You could do a whole show on how you practice for a multi-day event, too.
Yeah, we have.
But
we've talked about it some.
We just, you know, it was interesting just, you know, you just knew when you caught a fish that you better slow down and fish in that area. You're going to get multiple bites in a 50-yard stretch or so. But
and you can be pleasantly surprised during a tournament. I know you were, because you know I talked to you after practice, and you're like, well, I think I can catch a limit. Not sure if I can catch a limit, but I think I can catch a limit. Yeah. You felt pretty good about your practice, but you didn't think you were going to go out there and catch 60 pounds for 3 days. You know, like it's one of those things that it just unfolds. And you know, when you caught 5 the first day, I'm sure you were like, well, of course you had a good bag, you had some good bites, but you were like, you know, you exceeded your expectations. But that goes back to talking about practice and understanding, you know, do you really need to know every little detail about what you find? No. You just need some ideas.
Yeah.
You had some ideas. You had gotten some bites, and it was leading you in a direction that played out perfectly during the tournament.
Yeah.
You know?
I never go to a lake that has grass in it without a Mag 2 zoom worm in plum apple.
Oh, yeah. So you want to tell them what you caught them on and why they called you an old man.
Yeah. Well, that's why, because I was dragging a worm around, you know, and Patrick's out there with his live scope, you know, scoping them over brush piles, you know, catching them a totally different way than I was catching them. But to your point, as the tournament went on, and I did catch one big one in practice off of a tree that had 3 foot of water on it. But, you know, when you fish a bunch of trees that look great that have 2 foot of water on them and you don't get a bite, kind of, even I can figure that out. And, I clued that in as the event went on, and any tree that had 3 foot of water on it, it was crazy. And I've told Matt this earlier today. If you pitch to the left side of the tree, you wouldn't get a bite. Every fish I caught on a 3 foot deep tree was either in the center of the tree or on the right hand side of the tree. And when you worked it, it just swam off. So it was just one of them weird deals that I figured out as the week progressed. And just, I had a section of water willow grass that had a 4 foot edge, which I knew I could catch 5 out of that, but they wouldn't weigh but about 12 pounds. And that was kind of my second stop each morning to try to keep the momentum going and get a couple fish in the boat. And then I went to my primary area, and that's where I did most of my damage. But I usually had a limit in the boat by the time I went there.
Yeah. So we actually talked about this. This is, God, it might have been 3 years ago. And I think Ryan Sowers actually been watching and participating in LTF probably since our inception about 3 or 4 years ago. But we had Andy Montgomery, I think, was on the show one evening, and Thrift and myself, and we talked about what our biggest fears on the water were. And Ryan has submitted that question twice, and I want to address it because he wants to know, and we should ask all our guests this: what is your biggest fear on the water? Can be anything out there, but just what worries you the most, or what would be the absolute worst thing that could happen to you while you're on the water? I mean, obviously not drowning or something like that, but you know what I'm saying. Like, what's your biggest fear on the water? Keith Wood said no toilet paper. Dude wipes. Get you some dude wipes.
That's a good question. I don't know. I really don't. I don't have a lot of fear. I mean, I guess last year running across from Sandusky all the way across to the Detroit River, breaking down out there in the middle, and not having a way to get back. I mean but equipment's so reliable nowadays. And
rough water, would you say rough water?
Rough water, I guess. I mean, in 2008, I fished an event on St. Clair, and we actually ran across Lake Erie to Sandusky. And as far as fear goes, that's the most scared I've ever been in a bass boat, because there was 3 times on that 36-mile run across the lake that the waves were so high that you couldn't see anything around you but the waves. So that's, I guess rough water would probably be my biggest fear.
Yeah, Nick said a great one. He said getting the call from home that someone's been seriously hurt or died. Any of us that have families, obviously that's, I try not to think about those things, obviously, but if something like that was to happen, that'd be terrible. It'd be horrifying. It'd be, that's a big fear. But, and that's not a fear as much as it's something that I worry about traveling all the time on the Elite Series. I've got a wife and 2 girls at home, and just making sure everything's taken care of at the house. And of course my wife Emily does a phenomenal job at that.
Mine does
and
too.
Which allows me to do what I do, as does yours.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're 2 minutes from 8 o'clock tonight. We're getting ready to wrap this show up, and we didn't really get to talk about it. My next stop is Lake St. Clair. We get to go wrangle some big smallmouth in. And then we come home for a short break after that. That tournament's not till the end of July, so we will be back. We will be back in this studio hopefully before we take off for St. Clair. And then we come home for a week or 2, and then we have back-to-backs in New York, which I'm looking forward to. As always, we go to Lake Champlain. I said St. Clair, but that's where we go first. And then we leave Champlain and we shoot over to the St. Lawrence River, which I'm sure everybody remembers this tournament, which last year when we were there, we were there a little bit earlier. It was in July, but there were multiple records set, including first and second place in that tournament, breaking 100 pounds for 4 days with smallmouth. There was relative to the field size, I believe the record was broken for more 20-plus pound bags of fish weighed in relative to the field side, 100-boat field, 60-something bags of smallmouth, over 20 pounds were weighed in the first day. I don't think it's going to be a lot different this year. I'm just going to go out on a limb and say it. I think it's going to be an absolute smash fest. So if you like big smallmouth tournaments, we got plenty of them coming up. Todd's next one will be no different probably. I know there'll be some giant brown fish caught there.
Yep.
Again, my fear and your fear is probably the same. And anytime you go up north is, making sure you got everything in order on your boat. Here's a little tip for anybody that's getting ready to go to a tournament multiple days or just go up north fun fishing in some of these big waters. Double check your motor bolts, double check every screw and nut on your entire boat from front to back. You never know what can happen out there. I have had a lot of things come loose, break, come off over the years. I've seen guys' motors fall off. I've seen things, trolling motor shafts break. I've seen all kinds of stuff break up north. It's worth it to take an extra hour or two out of your day and just make sure everything's fastened down tightly. I do a little extra things here and there just to add some extra security to the boat in general, as far as locking down my trolling motor, even just locking the head down with an extra bungee cord or something like that when you're you're making a long run across rough water. So we got a lot of prep when we head up north. The good thing about the tackle prep side of it is, I've got about a dozen spinning rods in my shop right now that are lined up on the wall, and that's pretty much going to be the gist of my arsenal from here on out. Probably there might be a few bait casters mixed in here and there, but overall it'll be mostly spinning poles. So I know you're probably the same way, because your plan is to attack the brown fish when you go up north.
Yep, and I bet you're looking forward to going up there to those last 3 stops. I know you've done really well up there in the past, and I don't know why. St. Clair is just a beautiful lake. I mean, the bluest water. It's crazy how that water, it has a blue color to it. I just love that place. It's just a special place, and you guys will smash them up there.
It is beautiful. I cannot wait to get there. It's been a couple years since we've been to St. Clair, but it's been fishing really good last few years. I've obviously been watching the BPT event where Thrift is this week. Fish will be a little bit further along, a little bit in different stages when we get there, but the overall quality seems to still be pretty strong. But one thing I've noticed is they've been catching a lot of, 2 to 2.5 pounders, which is not, typical of Lake St. Clair. I have never been there this early, though, like when the BPT's there. I have been there when we're going, which is the end of July, and I'm sure things, a lot of the fish they're catching look like they've spawned very recently. A lot of skinny fish. They're still catching some 4 and 5 pounders. Van Dam caught like a 6 pounder yesterday or today or something like that, and so there's still giants in that place. And
probably the one thing for the next 3 events, the one thing you'll need to have in the boat more than anything is a bottle of Advil, because you're going to have your neck down looking at your active target.
Unfortunately, Todd, you hit the nail on the head. I'm gonna need some kind of like neck and back brace after these next 3 tournaments, because it will be unfortunately, and I say that unfortunately because, from a fan standpoint, it's fun to watch people catch giant smallmouth, but it's not necessarily as much fun to watch people stare at their front sonar. I still, Jacob Wheeler talked about this not long ago, and I still think it's very important to get them to where they can, put up a big screen on the boat somewhere or in the Bassmaster studio where they can see exactly what Todd Goad's looking at. They can see his bait. They can see the fish. They need to be able to stream that. And I think for the general public to really get engaged for forward-facing sonar, that's the kind of stuff. Because, that's cool.
They did that at the Classic with Gussie.
Yeah, but it was like super short-lived. Like, I don't know what the deal was. Like, they need more of that. And look, could it have something to do with like Humminbird being a sponsor of Bass and Lowrance and Garmin not spending as much money? Yeah, absolutely. Like, it could definitely have something to do with that, because money is what drives everything, right? They're a business, just like BPT, Major League Fishing's a business, Bassmaster's a business. I get it, but no, I won't be flogging. I promise you, I won't be flogging. Flogging. Hey, what do you say it? Flogging?
Yes.
Flogging?
Flogging. Ryan, I love the Zots. I don't eat Zots until I come over here, and I've already had 3. So yeah, love the Zots.
Yep. All right, y'all. We got to wrap it up. We got a trivia question we still got to give away. Don't forget the 4 brand new Pulse Fish Lure Bossmans are going out to the winner tonight.
And a hat.
And a Pulse Fish Lures hat that Todd's wearing. Not the one that Todd's wearing.
I'm wearing.
He's been sweating in that one all day. But a brand new Pulse Fish Lures hat along with 4 of the brand new Bossmans. And whoever receives these Bossmans will probably or definitely be the first ones.
It will be the first ones.
In the country.
We already have tackle dealers that they're going to be going out this week that have already ordered a bunch of them, which is great.
Yep.
But the ones these will go out will be the first ones out there for the lucky trivia winner tonight.
Perfect. All right, so here we go. So the trivia question tonight revolves around our guest, Mr. Todd Goad, revolves around his second place finish at Santee Cooper in the NPFL about a month ago, roughly, give or take. And it was about dead on a month ago now, wasn't it? Yeah, so that's right. So during his event, he weighed in a total of 62 and some change, right?
My dad just asked if he can get in on the
See,
trivia.
absolutely not.
Hi, Dad.
Family members are not allowed, number one, and please do not answer because it gives it away.
Hey, before we go,
He may or may not know. Does he know?
he knows.
Okay.
But I want to give a shout out to my dad. He's 82 years old. He's got a 17-foot Triton that he's had since 1998. He
Love it.
still fishes tournaments down at Allen Henry Lake in West Texas. Launches his own boat, fishes out. I mean, he does it all at 82 years old. He's amazing. I taught him how to use the Lowrances on his boat. I taught him how to fish out deep for spotted bass, and he's won the club a few times.
Nice.
He's just he's my role model, and he's just, you couldn't ask for a better dad. I swear, he's the best.
Shout out to Mr. Gary. So we appreciate all the support, y'all. Again, another successful episode of LTF with our new equipment. No breakdowns, no delays, no freezes,
Tyler
no
did a great
sound
job.
problems. Congratulations, Tyler. You did a good job. Jeff, fine job. All right, here we go. Trivia question. During Todd's 3-day NPFL event where he finished second place at Santee Cooper, what was the biggest bass he weighed in those 3 days? The single biggest bass in pounds and ounces that he weighed in those 3 days. I need one answer. I need the pounds and ounces, okay? And the first answer that's correct that comes across our feed is the winner of our trivia giveaway tonight, which is 4 of
Already got it. Chris Privet.
God, was that the very first
The
one?
very first one.
That has never happened in the history
Yep.
of LTF.
Yep.
The very first, well, you kind of gave him a hint earlier in the show, but I didn't say anything. You told him you caught 2 7-pounders.
But I didn't say 7.2.
Well, no, but they knew where to start. So 7, 7, 1, 7, 2. All right, Chris, you are the champion. So send us a message on our Facebook page with your shipping information, and we'll get these out to you ASAP along with a Pulse Fish Lures hat. So appreciate everybody tuning in. That was fast. Sometimes we're sitting here watching the trivia answers come in for 2, 3, 4 minutes sometimes even longer. But Ronnie Moore was on here as a special drop-in guest in the last episode, and he asked one that took him a while to get. Of course, he's full of that, crazy knowledge like that.
Yeah.
But anyway, all right, y'all, appreciate all the support. And y'all know when we can't go fishing, we'll sit right here on Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. and talk fish.